Welcome to this presentation about biases in beliefs and decisions, problems, causes, and remedies. You may want to pause the video to read some slides like this overview. Happy viewing. Beliefs affect the world. The baby orangutan hasn't reached a good decision yet on how to get out of the rain. I wonder what he believes. As humans, the most powerful daily influence is what we say to ourselves and believe. People can hang on to their beliefs in spite of reasons to change. From their defended positions, the decisions march out for better or worse. The earth is flat. Whoever claims it is round is an atheist deserving of punishment. Attributed to Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz. Although this Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia's view changed eventually, the U.S. itself still has a flat earth society. A notorious Nigerian, Mohammed Yusuf, has stated his belief in the flat earth. He is the founder of Boko Haram, the aggressive Islamist group that kidnapped hundreds of high school girls and burnt their schools. These kinds of beliefs are generally about restricted education and science. How beliefs change or not. A New Yorker article on belief bias about global warming and various important issues featured this study of parental intentions about measles, mumps, and rubella, MMR, vaccination. A nationally representative range of almost 200 parents, all having at least one child under the age of 18, were selected. There were 4 brochure campaigns. The one was scientific from the CDC about no autism links with vaccination. Another was factual regarding the dangers of MMR diseases. The third was an emotional appeal with photos of kids with MMR. The fourth was a story of an infant who almost died from measles. The question of this 3-year study was, could the campaigns change parental intentions about vaccination? The results. Overall, intentions to vaccinate were not changed, and decisions to vaccinate by the most negative parents actually increased. This is considered to be an example of motivated reasoning, like a lawyer emotionally defending a case. Some parents believe the photos and story show dangers of vaccines. The team leader at Dartmouth, Brennan Nyan, said, "We were definitely depressed." People make individual decisions, but diseases such as measles are a community rather than individual matter that affects people all around the world. There's approximately 7 million cases of measles yearly worldwide, killing approximately 122,000 people in 2012 alone, mostly children under the age of 5. In 1980, before worldwide vaccination, measles caused an estimated 2.6 million deaths each year worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. Here are 4 categories of the common biases in the order of perception, evaluation, probability, and causation. Perceptual biases have to do with expectations dominating when there's ambiguities in perception. Next, evaluation of evidence biases include tendencies to be consistent, draw from a small body of information, not realize how much information is missing, and hold on to information that is no longer true. Estimation of probability biases involve availability of information, especially overconfidence in initial and recent information. Causality biases range from rationalizing conspiracies where there's incoherent disorder, to the other side of not seeing actual causes and effects. It also includes attributing the cause of events differently to ourselves and others. There are dozens of specific biases. You can find a list on Wikipedia under biases in judgment and decision-making. The 3 major biases that we'll be looking at are availability, confirmation, and attribution. The big falsehoods. The bigger are often more powerful. William James, a pioneer of modern psychology, said, "There's nothing so absurd that it cannot be perceived as truth if repeated often enough." Changes. Times they are changing. In spite of dictators and repressive systems, consciousness keeps evolving. And what do we trust as Americans? According to an AP poll recently conducted in the US, trust is down about government, God, politics in general, economics, and neighbors. From other indications, there's less belief in the isms of racism, sexism, fundamentalism, militarism, and nationalism. Yet decisions continue. Every day, people have to trust somebody. Do we trust PBS, Colbert, O'Reilly, Fact Website, New Church, friend, family, money, lawyer, doctor, therapist, mate, drugs, dog, cat, or maybe ourselves? Reasons for all of these biases have to do with the cognitive hierarchy. Over 6 decades ago, Bloom put together a taxonomy of learning. Here, we have a revised version that shows as we go up the scale from remembering to understanding, there's increasing difficulty, and then even more in applying what we know, analyzing the details, and evaluating. This gives some of the reason why people tend to go with what they know without understanding, analyzing, and evaluating. Framing effects. Framing often emphasizes positive focus, since there's a natural bias to avoid negative, harmful, or loss outcomes. In this example, 75% lean is more often selected than 25% fat, which has negative connotations. Framing can be with images as well as words. A picture may be worth 1,000 words. Wording effects on memory. Witnesses may be led to reconstruct their memories when questioned with framing words about an event. In this influence study, people watched a video of cars colliding. Then they were given framing words. Wording differences. Immediately after seeing the video, Group A was asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? Group B was asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? How were the eyewitnesses affected? Memory construction and/or reconstruction. After a week went by, the groups were asked this question: was there any broken glass? The results: 32% of the smash wording group reported seeing glass versus 14% of the hit wording group. Actually, there was no broken glass. Statistically, the two different words influence memory reconstruction significantly. Source amnesia is the related reconstruction of memory by false attribution. Often, people can confuse where something was seen or heard, read or imagined. They might mix up a source between TV news, doctor, hairdresser, friend, or dream. Inattentional blindness, or change blindness. In this famous experiment, subjects watched a short video of several people passing a basketball around. The subjects were asked to count the number of passes made by one of the teams, say with the white t-shirts. In most cases, about 50% of the subjects did not report seeing a person in a gorilla costume walk through the scene. It's amazing to see. More experienced observers did better, with about 30% missing the costumed intruder. In fact, it is a bland gorilla costumed actor. A real one would be a lot more dramatic. In the newer edition, people expecting to see the gorilla do see it, but missed other changes. I won't spoil it for you. You may want to see the new edition on YouTube called The Monkey Business Illusion. Heuristics are rules of thumb for decision making. For example, the shopper may use the rule, buy the brand name product. Heuristics speed up decision making, but they can miss a lot by being less comprehensive and accurate than step-by-step procedures or algorithms that may take a long time. Of course, computers can do algorithms quickly. A major heuristic is the availability bias that's based on how quickly and easily things come to mind. Whatever increases the ease of retrieving information increases its availability and makes it more likely to be selected. Perhaps the most influential factor is how recently something has occurred. Recent words have a priming effect on memory. A second factor is how distinct or vivid an image something has. And of course, repetition is another factor. The book, How Doctors Decide, was written by a surgeon about this bias after his lengthy hospitalization experiences. Belief perseverance. This is the tendency to hang on to our beliefs even when there's contrary evidence. The confirmation bias, belief perseverance, seeks support for those beliefs and screens out the contrary. That's why it's important to seek contrary evidence to our beliefs, because there's an overconfident conservative style about our own beliefs. It seems everybody has this tendency. An example is interpreting everything a country or person does as hostile, based on a hostile belief about that country or person. Belief perseverance about risk. The opposite of the overconfident beliefs are another kind of confirmation bias with persistent hypersensitivity, fear, and other emotions after some horrible event, especially if that is a repeated event. This could occur by watching TV images over and over again. The 9/11 attacks, not surprisingly, led to very high fears about air travel, with consequent declines in air travel lasting for years. For some people, that hypersensitive vision of air travel persists to this day. It might be called PTSD. The fundamental attribution error, or the attribution bias, is giving ourselves more of the benefit of the doubt than we give to others, except in cases when we have really low self-esteem. In academic terms, it's overestimating the impact of someone else's personal disposition, character, or skills, and underestimating the impact of situations in a negative way, when we don't like what other people are doing. However, we tend to reverse that set of attributions when applied to ourselves. Now let's look at some examples. In judging others on the highway, if we see them swerving and driving erratically, the attribution bias is to blame them for being poor drivers, drunk, crazy, or having some bad characteristics. But we're not taking into account the situations where there's something wrong with the car, the person may be ill, or there's other mitigating circumstances that have nothing to do with the person's character. Depending on how we judge and blame that person, we may have a hostile reaction and give them rude and nasty signs. If we look at the same behavior in a more understanding way, then we may have a much more open attitude and even try to help the person. How do people apply this bias to themselves? Let's take a situation when you lose a pot in a game of poker. Maybe not you, but people tend to have a self-serving bias and say that they are just so unlucky. The person in the drawing is snorkeling in that bias and not attributing it to his lack of skill. Next is a situation where a person wins a pot. In winning a poker pot, the attribution applied to oneself is about skill. The caption is, "I'm so awesome." The person is snorkeling down into the bias of positive attribution. A whole different explanation in this case. Attributions occur with perception. In these two drawings, we have the perspective of lines that we are accustomed to seeing as indicating distance. With the drawings on the left, we may expect that the person in the front of the line of the three figures is the leader or parent, and children are following behind. On the right side, the attribution effect may be stronger. Here, the figure in the background looks larger and seems to be chasing the other figure. It may look like the smaller one who is running is scared. The perceived larger figure may look vicious. Actually, all the figures are of equal size. It's an interpretation of the dimensional perspective, projecting human dynamics into the pictures. Attitudes can affect actions, and actions can affect attitudes. It's a circular process that goes both ways. Shared goals may override differences, especially when important team cooperation is required, like in sports and military units. The result is that people start believing in what they stand up for and who they stand up for. Group pressure and conformity. The guy in the middle of this photograph is the unsuspecting student feeling pressure to conform to the group. All the other students, as many as 7, gave the incorrect answer. He is the only one not in on it. You can see the strain on his face. Would students with a clear decision task conform to the group opinions? In this conformity experiment, the task was to state which of the 3 lines on the right matched the standard line on the left. It looks like a straightforward task, but all the students who were in on the deception unanimously gave the wrong line, either number 1 or 3. The subject student came last. In this case, most subjects said the wrong line when the rest of the group had said that line. The students were greatly enabled to give accurate answers if there were one or more of the group who dissented. Some of the students later said that they were really confused and didn't know whether to believe their eyes or all the other people in the group. Effects of group interaction. If a group is like-minded, that is, polarized in a certain direction about a belief, discussion strengthens the prevailing opinions. The graph on the right shows at the top a group that is prejudiced in a certain direction, and that becomes more so due to discussion. In comparison, the group that begins less biased on the topic has an open discussion and becomes less prejudiced. This may not be a surprising finding based on life experience. Groupthink is a term for decisions that are made when the desire to go along overrides the realistic consideration of alternatives. Harmony wins out over effective appraisal. This is a list of polarized decision-making when those in authority discounted information about problems and dangers. The attack on Pearl Harbor, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Watergate cover-up, the Chernobyl reactor accident, the Iraq threat with ideas of a nice quick war, and the U.S. healthcare website problems. Us and them. Us against them. Here are very excited people with flags at a soccer game. There's bonding in this common identity. Group solidarity is a strong tendency to favor one's own group. Now back to how actions can affect attitudes. Humans strive for rational consistency. If we are aware of an action-attitude conflict and experience tension, we may change our attitude. This is called cognitive dissonance. Leon Festinger describes cult members' faith following the failure of their leader's prophecy about a UFO landing on a certain date to save them before Earth's destruction. After they had announced their earthly departure, quit their jobs, and given away their worldly possessions, the believers met at the predetermined place and time. The UFO didn't show up. Extreme cognitive dissonance. Now, conforming to their leader, members then chose to believe that the aliens had given Earth a second chance, and the group was now supposed to spread their truth. But not everybody went along with it. The power of individuals. Social influence is enormous, but so is the power of an individual. Mahatma Gandhi directly experienced tremendous biases, but he learned corrective ideas such as satyagraha, the concept that all views of truth are partial, including the views of the establishment in South Africa and the British in India. He joined with influential group members of the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League dedicated to independence. The individuals in the groups gradually changed beliefs, even among the opposing parties. This brings up the just world belief, or the phenomenon where the haves generally believe the world is just, with people getting what they deserve and deserving what they get. But the have-nots see it very differently. In this cartoon, the big fish thinks the world is just. The middle fish thinks there is some justice in the world. The little fish looks sadder and thinks there is no justice in the world. The big, and to some degree the middle or middle-class fish, have self-serving beliefs. Two sides of the, quote, debate between the scientific method and the creationist method. The cartoon reads on the scientific method side. Here are the facts. What conclusions can we draw from them? On the creationist side, here is the conclusion. What facts can we find to support it? One side is skeptical until there is verified evidence. The other side believes in the faith stories of their chosen authorities. Often passions and desires for certain conclusions drive decisions and actions. It's not the facts in this case. It's more of an emotional conflict. Truthiness is a term coined by Stephen Colbert. It's a quality characterizing a truth that a person making an assertion claims to know intuitively from their gut or because it feels right without regard for evidence, logic, or intellectual examination. Stephen Colbert says, quote, "What I say is right and nothing anybody else says could possibly be true. It's not only that I feel it is to be true, but that I feel it to be true." There's not only an emotional quality, but there's a selfish quality, unquote. Contrast that with the classical definition of truth. Truth from the days of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle has been said to be what corresponds to the sensory world. There are also practical definitions regarding what works reliably in life. This emphasizes a consistency of cause and effect in the world, generally believed by a variety of people. Here's a cartoon framing of the Big Bang Theory, combining a bit of science belief and a good old white grandfatherly God. The cartoon says, this could be fun. We have the God figure ready to bang a paper bag. To paraphrase Neil deGrasse Tyson, scientists try to get evidence countering confirmation biases. Let's see what bias researchers have come up with about people's opinions, motivations, and decisions. From multiple studies, bias researchers have drawn these conclusions regarding health, climate, war, etc., and possible changes. First, encourage those who are trying to get to go beyond biases to use facts from a trusted source, such as their own doctor. That applies to the vaccination studies of information receptivity that we looked at earlier. A tangible finding is that graphs are better than text. This particular graph from NASA helped with understanding global warming information. It shows global temperature from meteorological stations from 1880 to 2012. It shows about 1 degree centigrade change, which is 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Information like this can be tied into quality of life impact. Climate changes can be framed to emphasize personal losses. Of course, clear information is only one of the communication challenges. Fear is a powerful motivator. A parent survey about vaccination found the most effective anti-vaccination arguments are those that induce fear in parents by naming frightening ingredients and by greatly exaggerating the risks of vaccinations. The best pro-vaccination arguments were those that focused on good parenting messages, such as suggesting that not immunizing your child is equivalent to putting them in a car without a car seat. Next, continuing with the multi-study conclusions about bias change in health, climate, and other topics. One other recommendation is to allow adequate consideration of the participants' concerns. This makes a good deal of down-to-earth sense. Another recommendation, which may be more difficult to understand, is to stimulate positive self-memories to minimize defensive biases. This has to do with the theory that when people are feeling good about themselves, they are more open to see themselves as rational, open people considering the facts and possibilities. All the preceding recommendations could minimize major biases, including the 3 that have been highlighted: the availability bias, the confirmation bias, and the attribution bias. The correction to these biases is looking at what else could it be, and what else could there be, and raising additional questions. A decision-making template. I have been collecting methods for examining options in important life decisions. It's a comprehensive way to make quick decisions, and most of all, to efficiently deal with major decisions about jobs, relationships, homes, education, and more in a thorough way. There are 10 steps that interact powerfully like sun, air, water, and earth joining in a tree to bear fruit. The steps very briefly are: scan options, detail facts, develop priorities, clarify reports, set up tasks, envision possibilities, get agreements, energize self, evaluate effects, and continue or complete your project. The URL is elguide.cc/decidewell.html. Please raise your questions and give your thoughtful comments. Thank you.